back, everybody. We got another Australia Mountain video going on here for the culinary program. Looks pretty complicated. I know there's a lot of stuff out here, not really all that bad. We're actually going to do a follow-up on one of our earlier videos where we did a crème anglaise, which is an ice cream base. What we're going to do today is talk about gelatin by making a Bavarian cream, which is nothing really more than crème anglaise with whipped cream and gelatin. And what's nice about that is it stabilizes it, and it's a real common ingredient in a layered cake or like a torted kind of dessert. So what we're going to do is, to start out here, we got a lot of things going on, but we're going to start with taking some whipped cream. Got very nice ice cold whipped cream, and as we've talked in other videos, all my equipment over here on the work bowl I just pulled out of the freezer. My whip was in the freezer. That's really the best technique to use for whipping cream. So I'm going to go ahead and get this, and I'm just going to bring it up to about a soft peak. Go ahead and put my cream right in the bottom there. Bring it back up, and as we've talked, we usually don't go more than medium plus. We don't need to crank this all the way to high because you actually get a better product if you only go to about medium or maybe just a tick over. All right, we're going to give it a quick check now, just to see how we're doing. You can always pull the work bowl out. Nice soft peak. Again, what we're going to use this for in the Bavarian is actually to lighten it up and give it some air. So since this is at our soft peak right now, what we're going to do is go ahead and put this in the walk-in and then come back and get the rest of our Bavarian going. As we said, Bavarian cream is really crème anglaise with whipped cream and gelatin. So we're going to do a little bit of a repeat from an earlier video. I'm not going to go through all the steps. What I've actually got on the stove here is I've got my milk and heavy cream and about a half of a vanilla bean, and I brought that up to temperature, so it's right at a boil. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. And the other half of a crème anglaise is our egg yolks and our sugar. So we have to whisk these together and temper the eggs. So we got egg yolks, sugar, and our whisk. Again, I got a towel on here just to kind of hold everything in place. Trying not to put a ton of air in here. You want to try to get that sugar dissolved so it doesn't clump up in our product. That looks pretty good. All right, again, since we don't want to make scrambled eggs, what we're going to do is we're going to temper this with the hot cream. So just get a little bit going here. Try not to grab my vanilla bean out of there. Constantly stirring. I'm going to do this left-handed, so this ought to be interesting. And we're going to start doing this. And I tell you what, I'm going to, so I don't burn myself with my hot cream here, I'm going to switch hands. That would be the better idea, because I am right-handed. There we go. Now I can slowly, again, we did this in a previous video, so this should be old hat for you, slowly drizzle in our hot milk and cream. That towel that I have on the bottom there keeps the bowl from moving on me. Do a couple more in here. Good rule of thumb is always about 1/3 of your liquid into your eggs. I do usually 3 good scoops here for a volume this size. And one more. All right, now we need to bring the tempered eggs back into our mixture. So I'm going to move some things around here just to give myself a little bit more room. The advantage of having a nice big workspace here for our videos. Going to put this back on low. Very low heat. And again, constant whisking. I'm going to whisk the eggs back into my mixture. Go. Grab my spatula here. Just try to get all that vanilla bean out of the bottom. Again, the vanilla bean is the expensive portion here, so that's what we want to make sure we don't lose. And we have eggs here, so what are we going to do? We're going to bring this up to 180 degrees to make sure we cook those eggs thoroughly. Unlike pastry cream, this isn't quite as susceptible to burning, but I still do want to make sure that I'm stirring this. So when I see it just start to steam a little bit, that's when I'm going to grab my thermometer and we're going to check the temperature. Because we can make ice cream with this, we can make Bavarian with it, it's a wide variety of things we can do. A lot of pastry kitchens, what they'll have is just a constant supply of creme anglaise in the walk-in because you can pull it out at any time and then do something with it. Bring up my heat just a little bit. And get our thermometer ready. We're up to about 150 degrees right now. All right, so again, we're looking for 180 degrees, constant stirring here. So we are getting up there. Don't want the corners to burn. About 155, so it's not going to take long. Once we get the eggs up to temperature and we don't have any issues there, that's when we're going to take our gelatin that I have pre-bloomed in about 3 to 5 times its weight in water. What a lot of people will do when they're in a hurry, they'll take the sheet gelatin and just put it in basically a big bucket of water. And the issue with that is if your gelatin breaks down at all, you run the risk of losing some of the gelatin and then you don't have the proper amount in your formula. And then also, sometimes if you use just a small amount of water, again 3, maybe at most 5 times your weight in gelatin, your weight of gelatin in water, then you can actually just go ahead and throw that water right in with the gelatin. My vanilla bean is trying to escape. All right, we are up to temperature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this actually off that hot stove. Stir it a little bit more. And that hot liquid is what's going to be able to dissolve our gelatin. We have, per our formula, about 12 grams of gelatin here that's been fully hydrated in cold water. You know, it looks kind of like a jellyfish. But what we're going to do is make sure we squeeze out that excess water, because I don't want that in my formula. Not squeezing super, super, super hard, but kind of hard. Got a little bit left here. Again, I have leftover pieces in my water, so if I have a ton of water, then I run the risk of accidentally leaving some of this behind. Grab my hands off and stir this in. Once I get it stirred in, I can also grab my whisk and just give it a gentle whisk to make sure I break down that gelatin and get it completely dissolved. Looks pretty good. Again, that gelatin is what gives us the stabilization to put this into, for example, a pastry or a cake. Go ahead, grab my whisk, just to give it a little, make sure that I don't have anything in the corners. My gelatin looks completely dissolved. I don't see any of that mass that I put in there floating. And now, since we have more steps that we need to perform here with our Bavarian, we're actually going to get an ice bath, and we're going to bring this down to about 70 to 80 degrees before we do anything else. So I've got an ice bath set up here behind me. Make some room. We want to make sure we strain out that vanilla bean and any of the egg protein that may have coagulated or cooked in there. Just going to pour it right through the sieve. And I can always grab my guy here and tap. Always make sure you scrape the bottom, because a lot tends to cling on to the sieve there. Get that out of the way. And then I'm going to go ahead and stir this to help it cool off. And once we get this down to temperature, we'll go ahead and do our final steps. All right, we are ready to finish doing our last couple of steps here on our Bavarian. So what I did is I let the Bavarian, the base, cool down. The temperature you're looking for is 75 to 85 degrees. So that's what I've got in one bowl here. I actually split what we had just a minute ago in half. I've let this one cool down in the black bowl down to 75 to 85 degrees. You can see it's got a nice appearance to it. It's kind of liquidy still. You know, looks good. It's got a nice shine to it. One common mistake that students make is they let the base of the Bavarian get too cold before they do the final step. So I took the other half of the Bavarian and I chilled this down to about 60 degrees. You know, something you might leave it in the ice bath, walk off and do something else, or perhaps you just go ahead and you stick it in the walk-in and you figure, oh, it'll be cool, I'll come back later and finish it. So here what I've got is almost what you would expect, a gelatinous kind of appearance from the gelatin, because the gelatin has started to seize up in this. So, you know, it kind of looks like a pudding, kind of something like that. Taste is going to be the same as far as the actual flavors there, but when we finish the assembly here with our whipped cream, I think we're going to see something difference in the texture. So I've got my whipped cream from the fridge, soft peak. So I'm going to take about half of this, and I'm going to fold it into each one. So I'm just going to go ahead, divide this in about half. I'm just going to go ahead and add it on here. Just to keep myself honest and make sure I do this in the right proportions. Just going to go ahead and very gently fold these in. Got a nice wide spatula here. Notice I'm not whacking with the spatula on the bowl here because that's just going to deflate my cream. All right, that's pretty good. Since I have some on my spatula here, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cut in and turn. This would be easier in a bigger bowl, but I think it'll be easier to see them side by side in the smaller bowl. Cut in, turn. Cut in, turn. Trying not to deflate that whipped cream. The other technique you can do is you can sacrifice about a quarter of the original whipped cream and just go ahead and stir it in. That's very common, where you lighten up the base and it makes it easier to then incorporate the whipped cream. Kind of stir around the sides here. Again, in this black bowl we had our proper temperature, 75 to 85. Bavarian base. You can see visually here this is very light, very airy, something you could definitely see in a composed dessert, in a layered cake. So you've got all the flavor of the crème anglaise, the base, the lightness from the whipped cream, so it doesn't overpower your cake layers, and then again the gelatin is in there to stabilize it. So then you can pull this from, if it's a frozen dessert where you've got everything in a ring mold frozen, you pull it out, you want it to warm up to a serving temperature before you take it out to a guest. The gelatin will keep the Bavarian from running like you would have if it was just, let's say, ice cream. Everyone's had ice cream served to them where, excuse me, in the bowl of the ice cream, it's just run out because there's nothing there to stabilize it, to hold it. So this is pretty good. I don't need to get absolutely every bit of this together, so we can always come back and give it a final stir. I'm going underneath and scooping over. Going underneath, scooping over. At no time am I pushing down on the Bavarian. What we've seen here is this mixture is very smooth, it's very uniform. If I just kind of shake through it here and look at it, I don't see any threads, I don't see any balling of the gelatin. It was the proper temperature to accept the whipped cream, if you want to think of it that way. So now I'm just going to slide this bowl out of the way, and I'm going to repeat the exact same folding technique with my very cold Bavarian base. Cutting, turning, cutting, turning. Always go around the perimeter and stir it in. Very basic assembly skills here. Stir the perimeter again. Again, not going to whack this to try to deflate anything. Always pull it in, let it fall back in. Trying not to wear it. Of course, this was a vanilla Bavarian because I used the vanilla bean in the creme anglaise base. I could easily have made a chocolate, a hazelnut, any other type of flavored base, depending on my application. All right, I think that's about as far as I need to go because we're going to zoom in with the camera on these two and we're going to look at a few things. So again, we had our proper temperature, 75 to 85 degree base, still, fairly liquid. Works out good. Have our improper, our chilled base, I may have pulled this at the walk-in at 50 or 60 degrees. In particular, I had 60 degrees on this one. Now, what I see was, number one, it was much harder to incorporate the whipped cream. It was not trying to work in very well with me. But what I can see here, and this is why you want to watch your temperature of your base, is I actually have some, may be hard to see on camera, but I've got a few right here. There's actually balls of gelatin where, because we've dropped below the temperature where the gelatin sets, it's actually congealed into a little pellet. And so we've got a little bit of the gelatin balls. Does it change the flavor of this? No, we still have the same ingredients in our two bowls. But what it does, it gives an unappealing mouth texture. So as you're biting through this nice, smooth Bavarian, maybe with your cake layer, you're expecting it to be velvety smooth, and all of a sudden you've got this, what's that little bit of a ball of, is there something in my food? So we're going to stir this up a little bit more, see if we can find some more of those little pellets of gelatin. There's some, a little bit right there. Just on the surface of this, especially when I fold it over and turn it, I'm seeing a lot of little bit of texture in here. And the more this sits, it's cold, it's going to try to seize up on me. So in conclusion, kind of what we've done today is we've built on our earlier technique in a previous video of creme anglaise. We've shown that it's got a lot more application in the bake shop. With just a simple addition of whipped cream and gelatin with the proper technique, we can now have a Bavarian cream that we can now add to a very elegant dessert. Hope this is a good reference for you. Refer to it as you need throughout the program. We'll see you next time on Australia Mountain Community College Culinary Videos.